Welcome to Using the Services of an Author's Assistant. I'm Jan King, and I teach virtual assistants to become author's assistants. So I'm excited to talk a little bit about publishing and working with author's assistants today. Becoming an author is one of the biggest personal and professional achievements of a lifetime, and well worth understanding and doing well. Luckily, you have help. We recommend that you spend some time learning about the publishing industry and how to become an author. We also recommend you consider working with an author's assistant who knows the publishing process and can handle many of the tasks that would otherwise fall to you. As a result of the many changes in the industry, authors are now responsible for more of the publishing process than they were 15 years ago. Of course, the writing still falls on their shoulders. If the author has decided to self-publish, then the publishing process will fall on his or her shoulders as well. Probably the biggest change is that publishers are no longer primarily responsible for marketing and selling a book. That responsibility now falls on the author as well. Virtual or live assistants who work primarily with authors are called author's assistants. In the publishing world, author's assistants are a tradition, and there's a reference to the work of the author's assistant back in 1904 in the New York Times. While there have been author's assistants for a very long time, this work was traditionally something done on site and now can be done virtually. The author's assistant has been trained to take on some of the manuscript, publishing, and marketing tasks, allowing you to focus on only those things you can do as the author. The author's assistant is another one of the professionals vital to the publishing process, like an editor, proofreader, or book designer. Because the author's assistant has been through the development, publishing, and selling of a book before, he or she knows what to expect and can be critical in keeping your book on time and on budget. There are three key specialties for virtual assistants who work with authors. The first is helping with manuscript preparation. The second is helping with the publishing process, especially for authors who are self-publishing. And the final piece is book marketing. Many specialize in all three areas, and you can work with one person from start to finish. Let's first talk about the types of tasks in which an author's assistant can be a critical piece in the publishing puzzle, starting with those that relate to writing and manuscript preparation. Let's look at what preparing a manuscript and submitting it to a publisher entails. The author has the challenge to write the manuscript, to do research and interviews for the book many times, to get permission to use those interviews or other quotes in the book, to have peer reviews done, and to make sure the book is on track, maybe do a book proposal, including a competitive analysis. After all that, he or she has to pull it together into book form and send it in hard copy and electronically to a publisher. An author's assistant can help with each of these critical tasks. We're going to look more carefully at two of these tasks, obtaining permissions and preparing the manuscript to go to the publisher, to give you an idea of what to expect when you work with an author's assistant. A little understood part of the publishing process is that an author's contract requires that he or she is providing the publisher with all brand new material of the author's own creation unless the author gets specific permission to use quotes, interviews, lyrics, photographs, and other pieces that aren't his or her original work. A trained author's assistant knows how to track down the original owner and get the specific type of written permission required. The author's assistant can be a huge help to the author who is busy writing the book and may not have time or expertise to research and follow up to make sure all the required permissions are gathered. The first part of the process may involve doing research if the author isn't sure where a certain statistic came from or who made a quote. This requires a lot of follow-up usually, so it does take some detail to keep track of responses. Once the author's assistant determines the owner of the quote or statistic, he or she will request the permission and get the legal permissions form signed. On the screen are samples of the kind of request letter or email that might be sent to ask for permission, and also a legal language form that you would be hoping to get signed and kept as a record of the permission. If an author can't get permission, it's very important for the author to know so he or she can substitute some material in the manuscript. hard copy of the permissions form must be kept for the life of the book, so organizing the responses and keeping records is critical. On the screen is a real tracking form that was used for my book when I had an assistant who had the responsibility to coordinate getting about 25 different permissions to use interviews, quotes, and statistics. Another critical task, the author assistant, can be a huge help in the author in getting the final manuscript into the format that the publisher would like to see it. The author might have to pull together a manuscript or part of a manuscript to send with a book proposal as well, or might also have a contract with a publisher and be turning in the finished book. While the author writes the text of the book, there are many finishing touches that must be completed, such as the dedication, acknowledgments, a foreword, resources, the author's bio, and more. The author's assistant can coordinate the process and knows what must be developed and when. The author's assistant can research in what order the manuscript parts should be submitted, how the hard copy should be put together with the margins, headers, footers, and other formatting requirements, and how the electronic files or files should be sent, including the file naming instructions. Often, book proposal specifications will be available on the book publisher's website, as you see on the graphic. If the submission is for a book proposal, then there may be more than one submission, and the author's assistant will need to keep track of whether the manuscript is accepted or rejected and help with the follow-up. Here's an example of a submission checklist that a publisher will use to send to the author with the author contract, and you can see that it's very specific about how submission should be done. Here's a sample of a log that keeps track of the submissions to publishers and the follow-ups and results. We said that there are three key specialties of the author's assistant, and we just finished talking about the first one, aiding in manuscript preparation. The next specialty has to do with helping the author take that manuscript, that rough copy of the finished writing, and turn it into a product, a book or DVD or workbook, etc., that the author can sell as a product. There are two main ways in which authors get published. They either find established publishers like Random House or Simon & Schuster, or they can publish the book themselves. You'll hear that referred to as self-publishing or becoming an independent publisher. This is probably the biggest area in which virtual assistants could specialize and make a full career out of just helping self-publishing clients. They would probably need your services for a short term, say 3 months, and then longer if you can help them market as well. But there is a premium for people who can give these services, so you could take on a number of clients at the same time. But if the author is looking for a traditional publisher, there are also tasks you can help with here, specifically assisting with the preparation of the book proposal that would go with the manuscript we talked about a few minutes ago. Authors who have finished or almost finished their manuscripts and have decided to publish themselves need help in the self-publishing area. Let's look at what the publishing process entails. The author has the challenge either to find a publisher by submitting a book proposal or choosing to publish independently and take on the publishing tasks. If the author chooses to publish independently or self-publish, he or she will be responsible for obtaining all the important book numbers, like the ISBN and the LCCN, getting endorsements for the back cover, hiring a good editor, book designer, indexer, and proofreader, and much more. An author's assistant can help with each of these critical tasks. We're going to look more carefully at two of these tasks, coordinating the self-publishing process and doing a competitive analysis for a book proposal to give you an idea of what to expect when you work with an author's assistant. If an author wants a traditional publisher, one of the first hoops to jump through will be to create a world-class book proposal. Being able to do a competitive assessment for the author will mean a lot less work for the author in getting the proposal done. The competitive assessment is finding other books similar to the one the author is writing and then doing some research and analysis of these books out on the market already to prove to a publisher that there's a market for this type of book and that the author's book will sell even better. The author's assistant will focus on getting a good list together of possible competitive books for the author to take a look at by looking at local bookstores, Amazon.com, and publisher websites. Whether going to a bookstore or looking at books on Amazon or the publisher's website, The author's assistant knows how to analyze books. The kind of information you can help the author compile to make the assessment will include the publisher, price, publication date, and lots of other information. The second critical task we will look at is how to coordinate the self-publishing process. The mission here is to help the author create a beautiful book that will meet the audience's needs and sell well. This will take a team of professionals to get the book physically produced. What size will it be? Will it be hardcover or softcover? Will it have special graphics or illustrations? The book will need a cover and an interior design, and we hope this can be done according to the author's timetable and within the author's budget. Then the cover is created. The front cover can be created as soon as the title is set, and often the front cover is done way early to use on the website or in sales materials to pre-sell the book. Next, the interior of the book is done, and for that you need to have book numbers and listings done at the right time. Coordinating the book printing process comes last in all of these things and is another critical element. The author's assistant can coordinate the activities of all the team members, get the special numbers and listings, and generally keep the chaos to a minimum. Along with the author's assistant, the author's self-publishing team will include a cover designer, a designer for the interior of the book, a copywriter to write back cover copy, the author's bio and sales copy for the website, a proofreader, an indexer, and the printer. There are many technical portions of the publishing process that an author's assistant has been trained to handle, such as obtaining the barcode and registering the copyright. And the author's assistant has tools to report back to you that the items on the list are done and checked off and thoroughly completed. We said that there are three key specialties of the author's assistant, and we just finished talking about the first one, aiding in manuscript preparation, the second one, which was helping the author take the manuscript and turn it into a product, and the third is in helping the author with all the tasks involved in book marketing, which can continue for the life of the book. Let's look at what book marketing entails. The author has the challenge to promote the book by speaking, creating a website, engaging the audience of potential book buyers. An author's assistant can help with each of these critical tasks. We're going to look more carefully at three of these tasks: getting book reviews, creating a virtual book tour, and running a successful Amazon bestseller campaign, to give you an idea of what to expect when you work with an author's assistant. Every author hopes to get great reviews, and especially in high-profile newspapers and magazines. The fastest way to book sales success and international acclaim is to get great book reviews in top newspapers, industry trade journals, and on Amazon.com. A trained author's assistant knows when to send the manuscript, how to do it, when to follow up to maximize the author's chance for reviews that then can be used for the life of the book. The author's assistant can research which publications carry book reviews and what their submission requirements are. Then the author's assistant can submit the book with any required information. A number of the big review services like Library Journal Review and Booklist, both big determiners of getting library orders, require what's called advanced reading copies. The author's assistant will keep track of responses, and if great reviews get in, put on the website and put them into the website and other sales material. Books are generally only reviewed when they first come out and usually at the month of publication, so timing is very important in getting quality reviews done. Reviews can happen months later, so keep a tracking mechanism that will be helpful to the author. The second critical task is creating a virtual book launch and book tour. There are authors, assistants, and others who make a living just doing this one thing alone. A virtual book tour takes the author around the world speaking and interacting with readers without leaving the comfort of his or her own office, computer, and telephone. Major publishers recommend that authors take virtual book tours to boost sales, and a trained virtual assistant can set it up, manage it, and help maximize results. Doing live tours are expensive, and so the author will get a lot more for his or her money doing the tour virtually. The author wants to get attention online through having the book reviewed on websites, to have bloggers write about the book, to be interviewed on podcasts and radio interviews. The author's assistant can work with the author about 2 months prior to the publication date of the book, the official launch date, and plan events around that time. The author's assistant can research which websites, blogs, podcasts, etc. would be likely to attract the right audience of people who are likely to buy the book. The assistant can contact the sites, book interviews, and track to make sure everything goes off without a hitch. Here's a sample of what a log of the tour might look like at the beginning of the planning process. Many authors want to become bestsellers, and the author's assistant can coordinate an Amazon.com bestseller campaign. The way it works, in brief, is that the author pulls together a large emailing list and asks the people on the list to buy his or her book during one specific date. If the author can manage to sell 100 books or more during any given hour during that day, he or she will probably get close to the top of the bestseller list. People are willing to buy during a particular day because the author offers as many as 20 valuable bonuses, usually downloadable items, and also usually worth hundreds of dollars, by partnering with other professionals with the same subject matter. A trained author's assistant can handle the coordination of the listing on Amazon.com, the bonus gifts which are required to make it successful, and the tracking of the Amazon rank all the way to number 1. Now that you have a better understanding of how authors' assistants work with authors, let's talk about where you can find them and how you can find one that is a perfect fit for you and your book. We have a directory where you can find assistants who've been thoroughly trained on all the tasks you've seen in this session and many more, and have passed a rigorous exam. These assistants are part of an ongoing network of support, so if there's ever a question about the right path to take, they have a group of publishing professionals they can rely on to give direction and recommend resources. The author's assistant will also have his or her own network of editors, proofreaders, book designers, and others he can recommend to the new author. You should always interview an author's assistant you are considering working with to make sure you're comfortable with his or her level of skills and that the working chemistry will be right between you. You might consider questions such as, what kind of training have you received as an author's assistant? Will you be able to handle my book and my CD development as well? Do you like working on tight deadlines? Tell me about the other authors you've worked with. What kind of progress reporting can I expect? Can you help me find the right editor for this book project? Because there are so many aspects to the publishing process, it can be challenging for an author to know what he or she needs. The author's assistant can help outline the process for you and let you select which parts of the process you want his or her assistance with. We all know that things change as you get further into any project, but setting up clear expectations ahead of time and making good lines of communication a priority can pay off in increased opportunities for the author's assistant to help you avoid pitfalls and maximize opportunities. The author's assistant is a trained professional prepared to take on most of the tasks of the publishing process. However, the author's assistant occupies a distinct niche and does his or her best work in these tasks. Assume that you will also need to hire an editor, proofreader, graphic designer, publicist, and others, so you'll have all the expertise you need. The author's assistant can execute the plans you've put together with the aid of a marketing consultant or publicist, but you should not expect the author's assistant to take the place of professionals who've been trained to do that specialized work. The author's assistant wants you to have the best chance of success. Anyone can write a press release, but only someone trained in the intricate details can create a press release that is likely to get broad media attention. Much as you might have a general practitioner as a doctor who can handle most of your health needs, it's important to know when to call a specialist so that you have the best possible results. The same thing is true with the author's assistant, who can handle an amazing number of tasks but may not be a specialist in design or journalism. It is important to discuss your expectations on what you need with the author's assistant so that the list of tasks he or she takes on matches your budget. Author's assistants work both by the hour and by the project and may set up a retainer so that you pay approximately the same amount each month for the duration of the project, although that may be higher at first and then reduced after the book is launched and the marketing tasks eventually become more routine. Author's assistants' charges vary depending on skill level and region of the country. We've identified 24 basic tasks in each part of the publishing process that we teach both virtually and in live sessions. Part of the training is ongoing support from expert resources, so there's always a place to ask for help in any situation. Thanks again for watching and listening. If you're interested in finding a trained author's assistant, please see the directory at www.authorsassistants.com, or for more information on the virtual assistant training itself, see www.authorsassistanttraining.com. We wish you much success in your journey as an author.